It looked like a normal moment in the city, but suddenly something happened that made people stop and notice. The man had been sitting on the same cold sidewalk in New York for nearly 3 weeks, and not a single person truly saw him. Thousands of people passed by him every day. Shoes clicked on the pavement, taxis rushed past, phones glowed in people's hands, and conversations filled the air. But the man sitting near the corner of a busy street might as well have been invisible. People glanced for a second, then looked away. Some crossed the street, others simply walked faster. But on one ordinary evening, something happened that nobody in New York would forget. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness and second chances can change someone's life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The man's name was Daniel Carter. He was 42 years old, though the exhaustion on his face made him look closer to 50. His beard had grown uneven, his coat was worn thin, and the small backpack beside him carried everything he had left in the world. A few months earlier, Daniel had been living a completely different life. He used to work as a construction supervisor in Queens. He had a small apartment, a steady routine, and a daughter he spoke to every weekend on the phone. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. Then everything changed faster than he could understand. First came the layoffs at his company when a large project suddenly shut down. Weeks turned into months without steady work. Bills began piling up like heavy stones he couldn't move. Soon after, the landlord asked him to leave the apartment he had lived in for 7 years. Daniel told himself it would only be temporary. He believed he would find work quickly. But New York is a city that moves fast, and when you fall behind, it rarely waits for you to catch up. He spent nights sleeping on subway trains, moving from one station to another until the early morning hours. During the day, he walked miles searching for jobs, filling out forms, and asking anyone who might listen. Most places politely told him they weren't hiring. Others never responded. Eventually, Daniel ended up on the sidewalk near a crowded Manhattan street corner. The location was busy enough that he thought someone might notice him. At first, he held a small cardboard sign that simply read, "Looking for work. Anything helps." But over time, the words began to fade in the rain. Day after day, Daniel sat there watching people rush past. Businessmen in suits, tourists taking photos, couples laughing, delivery drivers weaving through traffic. Everyone had somewhere important to go. Sometimes someone dropped a few coins into the small cup beside him. Sometimes people avoided eye contact entirely. A few even looked annoyed, as if his presence ruined the perfect picture of the city. But what hurt Daniel most wasn't the cold nights or the empty stomach. It was the feeling of becoming invisible. He had once been part of the city. Now he felt like a shadow no one wanted to see. On the 18th day, the weather changed suddenly. Dark clouds rolled over the city, and the wind carried the smell of rain through the streets. Within minutes, heavy drops began hitting the pavement. People ran for shelter. Umbrellas opened quickly. Storefronts filled with people waiting for the storm to pass. Daniel stayed where he was, pulling his coat tighter around his shoulders. Rain soaked the cardboard sign beside him, washing away the last visible letters. For nearly half an hour, the street became quieter as the storm grew stronger. Water rushed along the sidewalks and into the drains. That was when Daniel noticed something unusual. Across the street, a young woman had stopped near the curb. She looked confused, staring down at something in the water flowing along the street. Cars continued driving past, splashing through puddles. At first, Daniel didn't pay much attention, but then he saw her suddenly step closer to the edge of the road. The water rushing along the curb was stronger than it looked. One wrong step, and the slippery pavement could send someone falling directly into the street traffic. The woman seemed to be trying to reach something small stuck near the storm drain. Most people nearby didn't notice. They were busy checking their phones or waiting for the rain to slow down. But Daniel saw everything clearly. Without thinking, he stood up. His legs were stiff from sitting for hours, but instinct pushed him forward. He hurried across the wet pavement just as the woman leaned too far toward the drain. In that split second, her foot slipped on the soaked sidewalk. Her body tilted toward the street where a taxi was approaching quickly. Daniel reached her just in time. He grabbed her arm and pulled her back with all the strength he had left. The sudden movement caused both of them to fall onto the wet pavement inches away from the road. The taxi driver slammed the brakes and honked loudly. For a moment, everything froze. Rain continued falling, cars slowed down, and people nearby turned to look. The young woman sat there in shock, breathing heavily as she realized what had almost happened. Daniel slowly helped her sit upright. His hands were shaking slightly, and his clothes were completely soaked. Only then did people begin gathering around them. Someone asked if they were okay. Another person helped the woman stand. A small crowd formed quickly, curiosity spreading through the street. The woman finally looked at Daniel properly for the first time, her eyes filled with disbelief. Just seconds earlier, she had almost fallen directly into moving traffic. And the person who saved her was the man everyone had ignored for weeks. The object she had been trying to reach turned out to be a small puppy trapped near the storm drain. A few people carefully lifted it out of the rushing water, wrapping it in a jacket. But the attention slowly shifted back to Daniel. Someone in the crowd asked if he needed medical help. Another person handed him a bottle of water. For the first time in weeks, people weren't avoiding his eyes. They were looking at him. Really looking. A man nearby who happened to record the moment on his phone posted the video online later that evening. It showed Daniel pulling the woman back from the edge of the street just seconds before the taxi passed. Within hours, the video began spreading across social media. People across the city started sharing the clip with the same message. The man nobody noticed saved a life today. By the next morning, thousands of people had watched the video. Many recognized the street corner where Daniel usually sat. Something unexpected began happening. When Daniel returned to his usual spot that afternoon, the same place where he had once felt invisible, things looked different. A small bag of food sat beside the wall. Someone had left a warm blanket there. A handwritten note simply said, "Thank you for what you did." Later that day, a local cafe owner walked over and offered him a hot meal. A construction company manager who saw the video asked if Daniel was still looking for work. The city that once rushed past him without a glance was suddenly paying attention. But the biggest change wasn't the job offer or the food or the blanket. It was the way people looked at him now. Not with pity, not with discomfort, but with respect. Weeks later, Daniel was working again, helping repair a building not far from the same street where everything had happened. Sometimes he still walked past that corner. The noise of traffic, the crowds, and the constant movement of New York hadn't changed. But Daniel had. He understood something deeply now. In a city of millions, people can become invisible in a moment. But one act of courage, one moment of kindness, can remind the world that every person has a story worth seeing. Before we finish, I have a special request for you. In the comments, write the word kindness if you believe even the smallest act of humanity can change someone's life. And if this story touched your heart or made you think differently about the people you pass every day, please take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the people the world ignores the most are the ones capable of the greatest acts of humanity.